Hello and good morning. Welcome to Kalam IS Academy, and here we present NewsKase. In this segment of NewsKase, today we will be discussing about unemployment in India. This topic, which has been in news for several times and at several occasions, it has been a part of economic and political discussions in India. So the sources will be the Hindu newspaper, reading from Indian Express, and the press release of PIB, which has given certain information related to the periodic labour force survey report, and we will be covering that. Apart from it, the importance and relevance of the topic is from the GS3 perspective, where it has been directly mentioned in your syllabus that issues related to employment. Along with it, the another part is the integration of the current affairs which has come in the newspaper with the static part. That means we are going to discuss each key concepts, key terminologies and qualitative analysis of unemployment in India. Along with it, the importance we can show you further that it has again becoming important from the UPSC's exams perspective, where one question in UPSC Mains this year in 2023 they have given. That was, most of the unemployment is structural in nature. Examine the methodology adopted to compute unemployment in India. This was largely in discussion whether these are effective or not, these methodologies are, and the question has come forward. Based on all these approach, we will be discussing certain key terminologies, key points from the news and the quantitative analysis of unemployment in India. So let us start with what is unemployment. If I talk about unemployment, it is a situation where largely most of the people are actively looking for a job or searching for the unemployment but unable to find the work. So unemployment is defined. Kya hai unemployment? Now furthermore, if we talk about, there are certain surveys which shows what is unemployment rate currently in India. So with that, one survey from PLFS which shows in rural areas, this is the recent survey which has come and which was largely in news. In the rural areas, unemployment rate has been decreased from 8.4% in 17-18 to 4.4% in 2022 and 2023. So from 8.4% to it has reached to 4.4%, and in the urban areas the unemployment rate has been decreased from 9.5% to 7%. So from 9.5, which was very high in number, it is now 7%. Now our objective of this discussion will be that we will be understanding why the unemployment rate has come down. Is there any positive impact, or there are certain negative prevalent problems which are hindering the process of development also, and also reducing the unemployment rate. This was the unemployment rate for male has decreased from 8.7% to 5.1%, whereas for the female it has decreased from 9% to 5.1%. These are certain data which has been come in the findings of NSO in PLFS survey. Along with it, there is another body which gives the unemployment rate in India, that is Center for Monitoring Indian Economy. And based on the discussions, we will see the negative correlation between two important surveys of Government of India related to unemployment. The unemployment rate in India is fell to 7.1% in September 2023 from 8.1% in August. So there is a small difference. This is an yearly survey, happens on annual basis, and this is done on month wise. But again, there are certain issues with both the surveys that we will be discussing in this further discussion. The furthermore thing is the vicious cycle of unemployment, how it impacts the economy, how it impacts the people of India, that you need to know. With that, it increases the inequality, it induces the rising inequality. Further, it enhances the dependency on one person to on the another person who is working or who is employed, and furthermore the less job creation is another big problem, and these are the vicious cycle which hampers and threats to the peace and security of the nation. For example, if somebody is not having work, he will be dependent on somebody, and if the other person on whom the person is dependent is not able to generate equitable income which can meet out the demand. So what they will do, they may go for certain activities which are not right from the society's perspective, unethical activities, and that will lead to creation of threat to the security and peace of the nation at the same time. If I say in Hindi, अराजकता वहीं फैलती है जहां पर लोगों के पास काम नहीं होता है. काम नहीं होने की वजह से खाली दिमाग शैतान का घर वाला जो कॉन्टेक्स्ट है वो यहाँ पे काफी पॉपुलर हो जाएगा. सो दिस कैन बी समथिंग विच यू कैन मेक इन योर आंसर with the vicious cycle of unemployment. Now let's move forward to understand what are the other major contexts related to unemployment. The prevalent types of unemployment in India. First, we will understand certain basic key concepts, then we will go forward to the key components or key points from the news perspective. With that, the first starts with structural unemployment. This was the part of question this year. What is structural unemployment? That you need to understand. With the structural unemployment, it is a condition which starts with a skill and job mismatch. That is structural unemployment. Apart from it, there is disguised unemployment. In the disguised unemployment, if we say, if more number of people are actually involved than number of people required, that makes the marginal productivity of the work zero or negligible to a larger extent. Thereafter, now certain new technologies, technological, where the technical gaps are there, the technical skill gaps are there. You can also say structural ka hi part hai technical, but rather than the country is facing a lot of technological upgradations and transformation, and based on that many people are becoming inferior to the technologies upgradation. Then the other is vulnerable aspect. Why I am quoting these two aspects? Because this has become very important from the Indian economy which is in the transition phase. The vulnerable aspects talks about without any agreement, that shows there is no job security. And even with agreements, vulnerability has increased with passage of time. For example, many tech companies are hiring and firing at a very faster pace. For say today, some companies had laid off 13,000 employees on one go or 30,000 employees on one go. So that is also impacting the unemployment segment of the Indian society, the employment sector of the Indian society. So now certain more things which you need to understand that I have just told you due to job and skill mismatch. This disguises more number of people involved than actually needed. Then this technological is due to change in technology. For example, we are changing our technology from the manual to automatic. Certain people will not be able to part of this journey because they are not knowing the technology properly. They don't have the technical know-how conditions. Then the without any job contracts, so that also hampers the job security aspect. There are certain more types of unemployment that we can also discuss in a bit, like the cyclical unemployment. Based on the cycle available, the business cycle, largely India में अगर हम देखते हैं, so agricultural labor के context में भी cyclical unemployment can come forward, or certain more sectors. For example, for 6 months or for 3 months, they don't have the job, and after that they have the job based on the demand. Voluntary unemployment means largely many people who can get job, but they are not willing to get the job. Job is available, but they don't want to do that job. So that is voluntary. Involuntary unemployment के segment में अगर हम जाएंगे, so it is something where people are actively looking for the job, but they are not getting the job as per their skills. So involuntary unemployment वो हो जाता है. Frictional is something for some passage of time you don't have job, then again you have, then you don't have, then you have. It is that kind of stuff. For 2 months you are not working, for next of the 3 months you are working, then again you didn't get the job. That is again based on the demand and supply in the market. But largely if we talk about India, so there is structural unemployment, there is disguised unemployment, and now the two more prevalent are the technological and vulnerable unemployment is also there. And with the many people, many aspirants like you and other aspirants who are aspiring for the services, they will come under this voluntary unemployment aspect or educated unemployment aspect. So these were certain things which you need to know. Now we have come up on the news which we will be discussing today. With the news aspect, if we go forward, the jobs, and still this was a express opinion in the Indian Express newspaper, where they have said the labor force participation is up and the unemployment is down. The two set of theories. Now you need to understand what are the key points from here, and then we'll be talking about the labor force participation and PLFS part. So first and foremost point which is important from your aspect is that at all India level the labor force participation has increased from 49.8% in 2017-18 to 57.9%, that is almost 7 to 8% increase. Another part was the participation rate has increased in both rural and urban areas and more in rural areas. First thing is at all India level the labor force participation has increased significantly. What is labor force participation? That should be another scope of discussion now. Labor force participation means people who are actually working in that sector, who are participating in that sector, also the people who are actively looking for the jobs. So both will include in the labor force participation. So these days from last few years India में क्या है, because of interns बहुत बढ़ रहे हैं, interns means the people who are actively looking for the jobs, and because of that the labor force participation is also increasing significantly. So that is one part of discussion. Now the another part of discussion will come forward that the participation rate has increased more in the rural areas. So key point, rural areas में ज़्यादा बढ़ा है participation. अब उसमें भी थोड़ा और brief में अगर हम जाएं तो let's see what is happening. That shows the female participation rate has increased from 24.6% in 2017-18 to 41.5% in 2023. That shows a very significant increase of almost 17%. So in the ASP point, you can add this point because this is an important point that shows there is a significant increase in female labor force participation in last 5 to 6 years. The increase is there, and this is largely due to increase in the women participation in MNREGA. We will discuss this part now. One more thing that you need to understand, this has also given a significant question. This is something a good thing, but one question has come forward from the survey itself that there is a decrease in the regular wage and salaried employees. Regular wage and salaried employed में decrease आया है, and the increase in self-employment aspect. That means people are more involved into the self-employment activities and also in the household activities which is largely not paid. Thereafter, the percentage of informal workers have also increased, and with that it has increased from 71% to 74% in 2022 and 2023 from 2020 and 2021. Post this, the entire this discussion largely shows two things in the economy. First part is that might be there is a situation that due to the women-led agenda or women-led development agenda of the government has resulted into it, where government has made certain more schemes where the involvement of women into the entrepreneurship skills, startup and stand-up India and certain more things has been enhanced. This is one such view which shows the condition of women is getting better, the women empowerment aspect is making the way now. But at the same time, the another prospect which comes where it shows there is decrease in regular wage or salaried employees, that shows the economy is unable to create qualitative as well as remunerative productive work that will meet out the requirement of the people who are actively looking for the job. So that is another set of context. Also with women largely in the rural areas are participating more in the MNREGA aspect, that shows there might be a condition that women are more exposed to the economic distress of the rural areas, which has been induced post pandemic, that was the reverse migration era of COVID-19. So in those aspects both the things can be seen, and but in a significant way if it is increasing, the role of women can be better enhanced. So for that largely there is a study rise in MNREGA that shows they are increasing in the low skill work, And in the low or no skilled work, largely because skill is not required there, the role of women becomes much difficult and stronger as the disproportionate burden is on them itself. Thereafter, although the unemployment rate has declined across broad, but the fall in regular wage and salaried employment shows that economy is unable to create sufficient productive and remunerative form of employment to absorb the millions entering the labor force each year. That is one part of discussion which I have just explained to you. So from this news, certain important key points that you need to understand. That is one thing, there is an increase in labor force participation. Also the increase is more in the rural areas, that is important for you. Furthermore, the female participation has significantly increased, and the reason largely is the steady rise in women participation in MG Narega. Along with it, there is a decrease in regular wage and salary employed that shows the economy is unable to create sufficient productive and remunerative work, which largely people are finding to absorb the million of labor force which enters. Clear? From this news, certain key important points you need to note down for yourself. Then the another news which was in the Hindu, that the urban unemployment rate drops to 6.6% in Q1, that is April to June quarter of 2023 and 2024 financial year. With that, certain key important points that you need to understand. The PLFS, which is done by NSO, reported that unemployment in urban area has declined in April to June quarter from 7.6% in April to June in 2022 and 2023 to 6.6% in April to June 2023 for the persons of age 15 or above. That is one thing. The another part also shows there is an improvement in female labor force participation. That is important, right? Also in urban areas from 41.8% in the pandemic type to 45%. एक important aspect ये है कि now the female labor force participation rate has increased to pre-pandemic level. So it is more than the pre-pandemic level, which was around 44%. So that shows the economy has recovered well in the urban areas as well as in the rural areas also. Now these two important key concepts that you need to understand, the key points, we need to understand certain more things. What is urban unemployment and what causes urban unemployment? That is the another part of discussion. Before that, you need to understand what is PLFS survey, Periodic Labor Force Survey. This survey has been launched by NSO in the year 2017, and the major purpose was to have a labor force data, to have the appropriate or proper labor force data. This PLFS survey estimates the key employment and unemployment indicators, that is another part, like workers' participation rate, WPR, usual principal and subsidiary status, current weekly status, current daily status, unemployment rate, labor force participation rate in urban and rural areas, and etc. annually. अब आपको यहाँ पे दो चीजें समझनी है. These were the methodologies which has been asked to examine in your mains examination, and from that perspective this becomes important for you for the future examinations of UPSC. Whether they may ask a question in UPSC Prelims, they can also ask a question in UPSC Mains. Further, with this aspect you understood PLFS survey क्या है, क्या काम है, what are the key indicators, employment and unemployment indicators. Now we will go ahead with understanding what are these key components, and we will understand the key concepts of this segment. Before that, what are the major reasons of urban unemployment is that largely people are either educated unemployment or technological unemployment. These two are the larger segment in the areas. For example, the people who are not getting the jobs as per their qualification. Somebody is graduate but he is not getting that job. Certain users like even PhD holder is applying for the peon job in the secretariat. So that shows the gravity of unemployment in India. And with that, these are certain reasons for urban unemployment. If we talk about rural unemployment के लिए क्या reasons है? So we can say the structural unemployment and disguised unemployment is more prevalent in rural areas. Understood? Now the third news which was in the part of discussion will be coming forward, that will be talking about the PIB press release, but before that we need to understand certain conceptual framework of PLFS. What are the key components of PLFS that are a part of findings? For say the first one is the labor force participation rate, that is LFPR. It says as the percentage of person in the labor force, that is the workers or the workers who are seeking or available for work. That means workers तो हैं ही, जो job seekers हैं वो भी, plus जो available हैं work के लिए वो भी. So this will include in the labor force participation in the population. In the population, the people who are looking for the job, actively looking for the job, who are also working and available for the job will come under LFPR. Apart from it, what is workers population ratio? Workers population ratio is defined as the percentage of employed person in the population. Whosoever is employed will come under this workers population ratio, WPR. Then the unemployment rate, it is the percentage of persons unemployed in among the persons in the labor force. Labor force यहाँ पे जो भी लोग unemployed होंगे उनको काउंट करने के लिए आप unemployment rate की बात करेंगे. Apart from it, the current weekly status, the activity status which determined on the basis of reference period of last 7 days. ये key component है इसका. Last 7 days में if somebody has worked for a 1 day or for 2 days, he will be considered as employed. If he has not got even a single day work or a single hour work, he won't be counted as employed. ये context है यहाँ पे. अब वो current weekly status में निकालते हैं. Then we have usual principal and subsidiary status. If in a year will be the reference period into it. If in a year a person didn't get job for most of the time, he will be termed as unemployed, or if he got a 1 month or 2 month or largely 7-month job, then he will be termed as employed. There will be two aspects, one is principal and another is subsidiary. Principal, the main qualification you are having, in that part you got the job or in your same profession. If you got some subsidiary work for a month, that will also be counted in this usual, principal and subsidiary status. And in a small way, this is called as usual status of employment. Now the most negative part about this is that in the usual status, might be you get a job a month in a year, largely people get. So that shows the most narrow down aspect of unemployment, that shows very less number of unemployment. So the actual status doesn't get estimated. Why I have said this, I will tell you in the next part. Then the current daily status, this is again for the 1 day is the reference period, even if you get a 1 hour basis work in a day, that will be termed as employed. So these are certain key frameworks which you need to understand, and when they ask about the methodology aspect, you can talk about these 3 segments. We will also discuss what is the major problem with the methodology. Post this, the female labor force participation rate jumps to 37%, a significant increase, and in that the report says, the PLFS survey says, there is a significant increase of 4.2 percentage point from 37 to 37% in 2023. And if overall 5 से 6 सालों का increase देखेंगे तो 23% था 17-18 में, it has increased to 37%, the female labor force participation. So that shows a significant increase, but again, it is not a very good increase. Significant है, we are progressing significantly, but still the labor force participation of female, and especially in the quality jobs, in the jobs which actually pay well, in the skilled jobs, is very less. So now the question of the discussion will be, why? Why this female labor force participation is low? So for that, certain major things which we all know is important. One is the patriarchal society, where largely more than 70% of the land holdings are with male ownership. So women का role वहीं हम बहुत diminish कर देते हैं, where they don't even have the property rights. So एक तो प्रॉपर्टी राइट्स है ही नहीं, दूसरा इशू ये है पैट्रियार्कल सोसाइटी इतने ज्यादा बर्डन डाल देते, डिस्प्रोपोर्शनेट बर्डन डाल देते वुमेन पे, दे आर नॉट एबल टू वॉक फ्रीली, इवन दे वर नॉट एबल टू work freely. So that is a very big segment we can discuss about. The disproportionate burden on women, even the working woman has to do all household chores and then she can go for work rather than men. So that becomes very difficult from them to manage both the things together. The absence of gender perspective policies, even the government policies are largely from the male's perspective, and that has led to diminishing and also making the role of women very small and very strict at the same time. Again, the glass ceiling aspect where the woman can reach up to one level of hierarchy and post that largely there are men and women are not allowed indirectly, or they are not being promoted to those levels of hierarchy. Low and unequal pay is another prospect where women are largely not being equally paid for the same work, for the same intensity or hour of works as men are being paid. The security concerns with the families, we are seeing many places where the security concerns are, a lot of things are happening with women. So that is another context. Apart from it, the unpaid informal global chain is another problem where largely the global career chain mein women's hai, but that is unpaid largely and informal also. There can be many more reasons. The reverse migration can also come further. फीमेल लेबर फोर्स पार्टिसिपेशन में एक दो पॉइंटर्स और हैं कि कंडीशंस अच्छी हुई हैं एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दैट मेनी वुमेन आर नॉट गोइंग फॉर वर्क. Another context is the job skill mismatch वाला aspect is also there. Education पे traditional families are not expending much because of, first is the poor condition of the families. Another is they largely didn't understand the importance of educating a girl child that will further can change the generation of the families. So these are certain things which will come under the why female labor force participation is low. That is one part of the discussion. Now let's move forward. The limitations of unemployment, why unemployment is higher and why the data of unemployment is not properly being made or properly being collected. The first and foremost thing is there is large informal sector in India where 85 to 90% of the people are employed in this large informal sector. And due to that, actual and quantifiable data is not available and that doesn't show the actual picture of unemployment in India. Also, the status of freelancer and unorganized worker is another such issue where they have the job or not, that is another problem. And government has no proper data whether the person who is in the freelancer activity or the gig workers are actually having the client at the moment or not. Apart from it, the traditional values and rising educated class, that this looks an inferior job to me, I am much educated, I won't do this job. This type of attitude is also working to increase unemployment in India, and also at the same time, based on the rising educated middle class, the jobs are not available as per their educational qualification. But at the same time, there are reports that only 47% of the higher educated youths are employable. That is another big question on the kind of education system we are having. Apart from it, the urban-rural disparities, the unemployment, certain areas in the rural areas are more prevalent due to certain more issues, and in the urban areas also. And those disparities are leading to increase more unemployment in certain sectors. Then the methodology is another such problem. For example, usual status है, usual status के हिसाब से तो बहुत ही less number में आएंगे, because अगर साल में एक महीने भी काम मिल गया, so you won't come into that. So that is one more part. Negative correlation, problem with PLFS survey and problem with CMIE data that you need to understand. With CMIE data, it is a monthly average and largely around 44,000 people are being taken for the sample collection. Of course, this methodology is calculating 44,000 random peoples. If somebody who is not having job, but on the day when the data was being collected, he got a job of some rickshaw pulling or some paper packings and other stuff, so he can say I'm at work. so he will be counted in the work part. So that is one aspect of it. Another thing is the comprehensive quantifiable data coverage is not there with Center for Monitoring Indian Economy. But there is one more thing. The labor force participation shows the people who are actively looking for the job along with the people who are working. So when there is a decrease because people are not getting appropriate jobs, so if it will decrease, the unemployment rate will also decrease to an extent that will show that there is less unemployment. For example, in May, the unemployment rate was reduced by 1%. But the larger reason was the labor force participation was decreased by 1.1% at that time. So that has caused unemployment to decrease. That shows the economy is not creating adequate equal number of jobs, that is making people to suffer more. Along with it, the PLFS survey, again the proper data collection, timely survey, again survey in the urban areas and rural areas shows much difficulty. In the rural areas, many people say, yes, our son is working in our farmland, he will be termed as employed in the agricultural labor. So that is also another thing. Now the question comes, why this unemployment is rising a lot? What are the major reasons of the job marker which we can understand why there are not sufficient jobs available in the economy and why the unemployment is increasing? So in that aspect, if we go forward, we will understand that every year India needs at least 80 to 90 lakhs new jobs. Why? Because there are new entrants who are coming in a larger number and who needs job. Also, the demographic dividend which is at its highest is need of job that will sustain the economy and economic growth prospect also. And to achieve the targets, we need to generate at least this much of jobs. But at the same time, we are not able to generate enough number of jobs, and because of that, millions of people are suffering of not getting the job. They are going through different problems, and that is also increasing the inequality, that is rising the inequality in India. If with this prospect, we can go further with why there is less job creation in the economy, less number of jobs. And with that aspects, if you will see certain key components of the why there is less jobs, first thing is that in the LPG reforms, let's go back to the reform era. Largely, it was service sector. Along with it, agar manufacturing mein MNCs aayi bhi, so they have given tough competition to MSMEs. And MSMEs were the backbone of the Indian economy industry at that time, and significantly they have reduced to a larger number because they couldn't cope up with these MNCs. And that has reduced the job significantly. So in 2015, you see a question, jobless growth in UPSC. Now the term has changed from jobless to job loss growth because layoffs बहुत ज़्यादा हुए हैं in the technology sector itself. That means the service sector itself has removed many number of people. And that's why the government from the last 10 years, if you see, largely focusing and largely emphasizing on manufacturing sector. Why? Because that is a labor intensive sector. अब problem क्या है? Growth is stagnant. There is global slowdown. And India has largely a consumption based market. So capital goods के लिए वो जगह ही नहीं बन पा रही है, और also the manufacturing sector is not getting the enough investments from the private sector, and because of that the stagnation is still very much prevalent in the Indian economy aspect. So for that, government has come up with many measures that we have seen, and significantly that may gonna help in near future. So this was the limitation part. Now what can be the way forward that we can discuss over here? Skill development to address the structural unemployment in India. This is very much required. The promotion of labor intensive industries, especially the manufacturing, the food processing industry, MSMEs, these needs to be promoted, and further ease of doing business needs to be promoted for these sectors. Along with it, the industrialization of rural areas will help to the 2/3 of the majority which is in the non-farm sector nowadays in the rural segment. Agro-based industries and MSME can help a lot into that. The gender inclusive policy will help to increase the female labor force participation. The labor market information with sectoral analysis, that is another part. And the race framework for especially for gig workers and other workers, just to support them, recognize them, that is very important. Again, this will help to understand actual number of jobs available in the market, and based on that the labor requirements can be filled with this. So these are certain way forwards which you need to understand and which you can better utilize. Along with it, the certain answer key points, answer sheet points from ASP, from Kalam IS to you, along with certain important key components which we have discussed. You need to make a note of that because that is very much important from the prelims and mains perspective. Along with that, we have done more extraction, and these points will be very much important in your answer sheet copies. So these are the participation rate has increased in both rural and urban areas, largely in rural areas, and there is steady rise in female laborers in rural areas. That gives you a perspective. Again, the female labor force participation has increased around 17%. That is another such part. As per this PLFS survey, female participation rate has increased from 23% in 2017-18 to 37% in 2022 and 2023. Why the female labor force participation is low? I have told that 70% of land holding ownership is with men, disproportionate burden on women, patriarchal society, glass ceiling, etc., which we have discussed, can be helpful for you. Then the urban unemployment, educated unemployed, largely educated youth not getting job as per their skills, that is one aspect. Rural unemployment, the structural and disguised, marginal productivity is zero almost. And then the PLFS survey is conducted by NSO and unemployment rate are did by CMIE. These are two things. एक अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट रेट PLFS सर्वे में भी होता है NSO के द्वारा, और मेथोडोलॉजी जो है वो है ये UPSS, CWS and CDS. So these are the certain key components which you need to understand, and based on this, I hope larger part of discussion unemployment we have covered exhaustively. You have key concepts. You know the detailed qualitative analysis of the topic. Now we will meet again with another new fresh topic that will further help you to understand the topic in a very proper and augmented way. Thank you for joining me today.